Nice. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. December 11. We're gonna have today two amazing speakers, Nick Desbarat and Dorian Benetorio. This is the Toronto Tableau user group. So as you can know, that we are kind of trying to do as much as possible from the Tableau perspective in the Canada's market and specifically to Toronto here. About the news, we as you can see on the screen, so we have Kavaljit Kaur and Ada. So these are like my new co-leads. So I was the only one lead. Now I'm just co-lead. So and I want to congratulate them firstly and wish them good luck. And okay, so I can just introduce myself quickly. So I'm Adrian Genovese, so I'm a Tableau ambassador, I'm a Tableau visionary, and this group co-lead. And yeah, I have like 12, more than 12 years of experience with Tableau and many other like projects and so on. And let's introduce Ada. So Ada, if you can just quickly just say something about yourself, just quick intro.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Ada. My journey with data has always been about telling impactful stories and helping people make better decisions through analytics. And this is exactly what Tableau is all about. So when Adrian invited me to join the Tableau user group, I'm super excited. And also with all the announcement from Dreamforce this year, like Tableau Agent and deeper integration with Salesforce, it feels like a perfect timing for me to bring my expertise into this space. So here I am, super excited
Nice,
to be
nice.
working here with everybody.
Yeah, I guess we just only forget that you're a Tableau CRM ambassador and the only one in Canada.
Yeah.
Let's jump into Kavaljit Kaur. So if you can introduce yourself quickly.
Right. Hi everyone, my name is Kavaljit. This is first time I'm hosting the user group session with Adrian and Eda. So I live in Brampton, Canada. I started my Tableau journey in 2018. It's been now 5-6 years working with various business stakeholders, different domain, making lots of business dashboards, helping customer make
Mhm.
data-driven decisions. I think that's all what we do, and we love doing it. We all love data. That's how we started, and we are sticking to it. So yes, that's all about me. So I also have, yes, one more point. I also have presence on Tableau Public and participates in Makeover Monday, contribute to Tableau Forum, so
Mhm.
and LinkedIn as well. So we are quite active on LinkedIn.
Amazing.
And
And you
I'm
forgot to mention that you were a speaker at this group before and you got this technical presentation. Everyone was amazed about
yes.
that and so on. Yeah.
Thank you, Adrian,
Okay,
for bringing it up.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, let's move on. If anyone, Ada, can you introduce our first speaker?
Yeah, so it's my absolute pleasure to introduce today's first guest speaker, Nick Deborah. Nick is one of the most respected educators in the field of data visualization and dashboard designing, and he has helped thousands of professionals from organizations like NASA, Bloomberg, and United Nations, and turned complex data into clear and actionable insights. He is also the author of Amazon #1 new release practical charts. I don't know whether you can see from his background. Those two books are displayed
Yeah.
on the shelf, and he has a new book coming, practical dashboards coming next year. And he also hosts workshops all around the world. And you are more than welcome to check his website, practicalreporting.com. So today, Nick will talk about what it takes to become a true Dataviz pro. And I cannot wait to learn from Nick. So let's welcome Nick.
Yeah, that's amazing. Nick, you can start sharing your screen. So that's
All
amazing.
right.
We have this like superstar here.
I'm not sure to say that, but I'm certainly happy to be here. Yeah, thanks for that great introduction. Congratulations, Ada, on the pronunciation of my last name. It's not an easy one. Just ignore half the letters. It all works out. Invented by silly French people. I'm assuming you can see my screen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, just kind of a short talk, because of course there are two talks today. But I just want to kind of talk about what it takes, at least in my opinion anyways, to create effective charts, because there's a lot of misconceptions around this question. And but before we talk about that, kind of got to answer the question though, what exactly do I mean by an effective chart? There's actually kind of a surprising amount of disagreement around this. This is probably the most common answer people will give. It's like, well, you know, an effective chart kind of shows the data well. But I don't think that's a very good answer, because, you know, all charts show data, right? You know, even really, really terrible charts. And just showing data in and of itself has no value, right? Just seeing data. And so I don't actually use that definition. My definition is, I think that an effective chart does the job that it was created to do. And so, which kind of begs the question, right? Well, what do I mean by the job of the chart? Well, depending on the situation, the job could be quite different, right? Sometimes we're trying to persuade the audience to take a certain action, you know, get vaccinated, green light a project, whatever. Sometimes we're trying to explain, you know, a specific concept to the audience without necessarily trying to persuade them of anything. Or we might just be trying to make the audience aware of a certain problem or opportunity, answer a question that they've asked us, and a chart is just the most efficient way to answer that question. Or, you know, maybe we want to allow the audience to look up values. They can look up the, you know, value of their property in a real estate dashboard or something, and on and on and on. In fact, there are an unlimited number of different types of jobs that charts can have. And so the job is kind of different from one chart to the next. But in my mind, at least, ultimately what matters is how well the chart actually does that job. So if we're trying to persuade the audience to do something, what ultimately matters is, did they do that thing? And it's not necessarily how precise it is, or how visually appealing it is, or how quick it is to read. I call those subordinate qualities, the subordinate qualities of a chart, because they often help a chart do its job, but it's not ultimately what it's about. What it's about is actually, you know, accomplishing the purpose which prompted us to create a chart in the first place. And so with that in mind, now hopefully we can start sort of ask the question more in a more equipped way, which is, okay, so what skills are required to actually create charts that do their job? Many people tend to think of software when asking this question, right? They think that learning products like Tableau or Excel or Power BI or Plotly or one of the many other software products out there, that's how you get good at this, right? If you sort of develop mastery of one of these software products, that means you're good at creating charts. Although I think that it's necessary, right? You have to know how to use a piece of software. There are many other skills which I think are required as well. And some of those skills, the ones that are listed here, I think are required for creating any kind of, right, whether it's a business chart or data art or whatever. And then there are skills that are required to create certain types of charts specifically. And so basic data visualization software expertise is in there, but as you can see, it's just one of many skills. And so I'm going to kind of use the rest of my time here to very briefly kind of step through what the other skills are that I think are required. And so let's start with data handling expertise. And this is things like, you know, sourcing data, checking it, cleansing it, joining it, filtering it, doing all that boring stuff, basically, that, you know, we spend, unfortunately, a lot of our time actually doing. And so I think this is an important skill to have in order to be really good at creating charts, because essentially, if the person who's creating a chart isn't the same person who handled the data, well, first of all, it's just going to take longer, right? Because now is kind of this two-step process as opposed to just one person kind of doing all the work. But probably a bigger concern is that whoever's creating the chart is going to have a potentially incomplete understanding of the domain and context of the data in terms of like how it was collected, how it was filtered perhaps, and any limitations in the data, because there are almost always limitations in the data, right? And so if you're not aware of those limitations, then you're at greater risk of simply not flagging those in the chart, right? And that can obviously be a huge problem. And then we have basic statistical knowledge. And so we need this to avoid planting what I call statistical landmines in our charts, and many of those, right? I'm not going to go into all of these. This is not a presentation about statistics, but it's things like, showing medians when, or showing means when medians would be more informative, calculating percentage increases and decreases incorrectly, which unfortunately I see all the time, showing averages without also showing distributions, showing correlation as causation, and a whole bunch of other problems. So you don't have to be a statistics expert, but you have to have a basic grounding in statistics so you don't plant these kinds of statistical reasoning errors in your charts. If this is something that you perhaps might feel that you brush up on, a couple of good books that I can recommend. There's Naked Statistics by Charles Whelan and The Data Loom by my friend and colleague, Stephen Few, both of which are quite easy to read, and they'll sort of give you enough grounding in statistics to create most charts fairly kind of safely. And then, of course, we do have data visualization software expertise, so knowing how to use one of these products. And in fact, a lot of people believe that, like I said, just knowing how to use a piece of software like this makes you good at creating charts. And oftentimes, job postings for data visualization roles focused almost entirely on software knowledge, on skills and qualifications for using one of these products. But saying that using, let's say, Excel or Tableau means that you can create effective charts, it's kind of like saying if you're an expert user of Microsoft Word, that makes you a great writer. It's like, what? No, I mean, it doesn't really work that way. I mean, yes, you have to know how to use a tool, but there are all sorts of other skills that are needed. And of course, we're talking about those other skills in the rest of my talk here. And so neither of these statements are true. Like, knowing how to use a piece of software is necessary, but I don't think that it's sufficient. And then we have what I call situational knowledge. And so to talk about that, I want to tell a little kind of anecdote, a little story here. And so in this scenario, you are a data analyst for a small retail chain with 4 stores, and you're looking at monthly sales data, and this is what it looks like. What is the obvious insight here? Well, something bad is happening at store B, right? And so you find this potentially important discovery, and you're all excited to present your findings at the management meeting, expecting oohs and ahs, and thank goodness you spotted this. But instead, when you show this chart and you explain what you found, you get no reaction at all, just crickets, shrugs. And then finally, somebody speaks up and says, well, we're shutting down store B. Like, we're not replenishing its inventory. And so obviously its sales are going down. This was entirely expected. Thanks for kind of wasting our time, essentially, was something that we, probably already knew in the first place, right? And so as it turned out, this was not the insight of interest here. But then somebody else, another member of the management team pops up and says, well, hold on a second. We are also shutting down store C, right? So that's that green line here. But look, it's actually even increasing slightly. That's weird, right? That's actually very unexpected and potentially very important information. Maybe we shouldn't be shutting down store C. And so as it turned out, this was not the main insight. This was the insight of interest. And so you can stare at the data all day long and you will never discover this, right? You have to get outside of the data and figure out what's going on in the environment, essentially in the organization, in your industry, and develop that situational knowledge. And so this means things like knowing what the audience would expect to see versus what they would find surprising, any specific concerns or priorities or questions that they have at the moment, or concerns, what kinds of insights they would find to be useful or useless, what background knowledge they have, or what they're actually lacking. What is their level of graphicacy, which is a word, right? There's numeracy, literacy, and graphicacy, which is the ability to read graphs. And as you probably know, this varies widely from one person to the next. And so you have to know what kinds of chart types they're familiar with and what they're likely to understand or not. And if there are specific ways that the audience is used to seeing data represented. And so, generally, if you want to try to kind of stick to what they're used to, unless there's a good reason to actually change it. And then we have data visualization fundamentals. And so these are skills like knowing how to choose chart types, how to format scales, different types, how to choose color palettes, how to avoid accidentally misrepresenting the data, which is incredibly easy to do, and many, many other skills. And in fact, this is basically what I teach in my flagship course, my practical charts course. This is the agenda. It's 2 full days in person, 4 half days online, just to give you an idea of how much there is to know here about these data viz fundamentals. We talk about things like how to choose chart types. This is, for example, a decision tree for choosing how to show the breakdown of a total, right? There's lots to learn here. And there's actually 8 of these decision trees in the course. Lots to learn about choosing colors, not necessarily colors that look nice, although they should look nice, but colors that make sense. Lots to learn about formatting quantitative scales, lots of ways to screw these up. And so there is a learn when it comes to these data visualization fundamentals. And then we have skills that are required to create certain types of charts, but not all charts. Like, for example, storytelling. Everybody, I'm sure, on this call has heard this buzzword, kind of a 1,000 times. It's gained a lot of traction over the last few years, to the point where a lot of people assume that this is kind of a must-have skill for creating effective charts. And sometimes people will assume that it's the only skill that is required to create effective charts, right? If you have good storytelling skills, that means you can create great charts. But I think that this is mostly only needed for charts that are designed to persuade, right? If we are trying to get the audience to greenlight a project or get vaccinated or whatever, then storytelling can be very effective, or getting them to donate to our cause or whatever it is. But what this means is that not all charts need to tell a story. And in fact, in my experience, only the minority of charts actually need to tell a story. If somebody has just asked us a straightforward question and we can give them a straightforward chart with that answer, we don't need to tell a story around it. And just because you have good storytelling skills doesn't mean that you're able to create effective charts. As we're seeing, there are all sorts of other skills that I think you need as well. And then we have graphic design. And so again, depending on who you talk to, some people think that this is actually kind of the main skill that is required to create effective charts. That, these are people who believe that essentially if it looks good, it is good, right? If it's a kind of a pretty chart, then it's a good chart. But you've, especially the people on this call, have probably seen a lot of these, what I call virally bad charts, charts that look beautiful, they look really nice. But if you know anything about data visualization, you have a closer look and you're like, oh my God, there are serious problems with these charts. And these are often created by people like talented graphic designers, but who lack the other skills that are in my list that we're going through right now. And so, graphic design, in my experience, is really only needed if you're creating data art or infographics, but not necessarily if you're creating kind of everyday charts for, business reports and presentations. The charts should be professional looking, but they don't have to necessarily be beautiful. And so I don't think you need to be a graphic designer to create kind of effective everyday charts, which is good news for people like me, because I am not a graphic designer. I'm not a visual artist. I have no visual arts training, but that doesn't stop me from creating kind of effective charts for reports and presentations. And then we have coding and advanced data visualization software expertise. Coding maybe in JavaScript libraries for creating very kind of bespoke, customized, or technical charts. Really only needed, though, if you are creating those more advanced scientific or technical or very non-standard charts. So not needed for most charts anyways. And then also advanced statistical knowledge, as opposed to, like I talked about, basic statistical knowledge before, which I think is essential. Advanced statistical knowledge, though, really only needed, once again, if you're creating highly technical or scientific charts, or you're doing advanced financial analysis or something like that. And so it's not necessary for all charts, just for some charts. And so kind of a bit of a wrap up, maybe some key takeaways, if I can leave you with anything from this talk. It's, that effective charts don't just show the data, they do their job. And this is a very different way of thinking about creating charts. When I teach workshops, it takes usually at least several hours for people to kind of shift their thinking, so that when they start creating a chart, They're not saying, what is the best way to visualize this data, which I don't think is a good starting point. They're basically saying, what do I want this chart to do? You need to kind of figure that out first, and then you can start making actual design choices. But unfortunately, too often people actually skip that step, right? They just start with the data and say, what is the best way to visualize the data, without thinking through why they're visualizing the data. And they end up making kind of random design choices. Another, I think, key takeaway is that there are a surprisingly wide variety of skills that are required to create effective charts. It's not just about learning a piece of software. There are all sorts of other skills that are needed on top of that. Some of those skills are required to create any kind of chart, whereas other skills like storytelling, graphic design are only required to create some types of charts. And that it just takes time to master these skills, right? Even just the skills kind of in that left column that are required for kind of any chart, I think it can take months or years even to develop those skills, especially with things like situational knowledge, right? If you're creating charts about insurance, it takes a long time to learn a lot about insurance so that you create useful charts about insurance. And yet, unfortunately, in a lot of the organizations that I work with, charts are, the job of creating charts is often delegated to, delegated to more junior people who haven't developed these skills, and then it tends to kind of not work out very well. If you feel that you maybe need to kind of brush up on your data visualization fundamental skills, that is kind of the part of that list that I teach. There are actually 3 ways to take my course if this is of interest. I recently released an on-demand version of the course, which is about 6.5 hours in 45 lessons. I do teach a couple of public workshops a year. The next one is actually going to be online in February, if you're interested in that. But most of the workshops that I teach are private. And so for, kind of 15 to 60 employees, if this is the kind of thing you think where your organization might be interested in, then of course I'm happy to talk about that. So yeah, whirlwind tour. Do we have time for questions, or do we need to move to the next presentation?
Yeah, we can have some questions. So I think there's a question. So somebody's asking if do you have like a usual procedure to follow? You follow to get feedback from users, to determine whether it's a chart, or whether it's effective or not. So you're getting feedback from the users from.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's more through, you can tell if a chart was effective in the discussion that happens afterwards, right? Usually, for example, if they have misread the chart or misinterpreted it, it's going to become obvious pretty quickly in the discussion. It would be great to be able to actually get people to fill out, a little survey or do like a little interview afterwards about what they got from it, or if they found it to be effective. And if they have time to do that, that's fantastic. It's just in my experience, oftentimes they don't, right? They're too busy. And so you have to often get that feedback through the discussions that you have about the chart and about the data in the chart with them afterwards. And then you can get a sense of, was it actually kind of effective or not? Did they read it or not? That's a big one, because if it's not very well designed, then there's a high risk that people would just skip reading it, right? Like and then that becomes obvious. That becomes obvious in your subsequent discussions as well, right? Where you're talking about it, it becomes clear that they actually did not read the chart, and obviously that's kind of a red flag. It's easy to blame the reader, but you always want to ask yourself, well, could I have made this essentially easier for them to understand? And so maybe they'll be less likely to skip reading it next time.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I have a question on my own. So, for example, you're building some kind of statistical advanced charts, and you're using some kind of like a bullet charts, some more advanced type of visuals, like charts. What if the users are not ready for that, and they kind of don't really understand it? So how you kind of explain this to them and just
Sure. Yeah. So there's actually 3 techniques that I talk about in my course for teaching people how to use a potentially unfamiliar chart type.
Mhm.
But the thing to mention first, though, is that this is the last resort, right? You always, as much as possible, want to try and use chart types that are familiar to the audience. But sometimes you have no choice, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you need to say about the data just requires a chart type, and you either know or suspect that they're not familiar with it. So one technique is what I call the gentle reveal technique. And so, like, let's say you need to show a scatter plot and the audience doesn't know how to read a scatter plot. Well, you start by showing one scale, and then you show the other scale, and then you put one dot on it and explain what that dot means, and then you layer in the other dot. So you basically reveal it in steps, and then it's easier for people to understand rather than just showing the whole chart at once.
Mhm.
There's also what I call the bait and switch technique, which is where, let's say you wanted to show like a bumps chart, which is like a line chart that shows things changing in rank rather than changing in quantity. And sometimes people will kind of struggle with that. And so what you can do is show a regular standard line chart version and then explain why it's not really telling us what we need to know. And then you switch to the unfamiliar bumps chart, where you've kind of opened a space in their mind to accept that, okay, we need some new kind of chart type. Because every time you're introducing a new chart type, there's effort, right? The audience has
Yeah.
to
Yep.
concentrate, and it takes their time and attention. And so there's kind of a cost to it. And then the third technique is what I call duh insights. And so these are where you add annotations to the chart that point things out in the chart that would be very obvious to somebody who already knows how to read it, right?
Yep.
But for somebody who, especially if they have to try and figure it out on their own because they're going to read it in a report and you're not going to be there to explain it to them, those kinds of insights can be very helpful for them to figure it out on their own. And so I call them duh insights, because they're insights that would be very obvious, like I said, to somebody who already knows how to read that chart type. So they're going to read it and go, well, duh, right?
Nice.
But if somebody is not familiar, those can be really, really helpful.
Nice. So usually you're using storytelling for the analytical process. Yeah.
I mean, depending on how you define the term, that's a whole
No, I
other
mean, like you're
discussion. But
explaining how you build the dashboard, or like how to build a chart and so on.
yeah.
Okay. Yep. Thank you so much. Okay, let me. Can you just unshare your screen? So I'll share mine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. The next one. Okay.
Okay, let me introduce you with talented Dorian. He is Tableau certified professional. He's also an analytics consultant like me. I was able to relate with his experience. He has 6 years of experience working with modern data tools like Tableau, Alteryx, Snowflake, from end-to-end pipeline, I guess, from ingestion to storage to cleaning and visualization. He has experienced in various domains like finance, real estate, healthcare, and many others. And he worked very closely with the customers to understand their data, discover hidden insights, and make data-driven business decisions. So today, Dorian will show us on how to create mobile-friendly dashboards and make data available wherever we go on our fingertips, and show important KPIs on very top so we stay up to date whenever we want. So over to you, Dorian.
Okay. Yeah, I'm stop sharing.
Okay.
So in the meanwhile,
Thank you
I can show some more information. So I met Dorian in person at the conference this year, finally. So yeah, and we speak the same mother language. So yeah, that's really important. Okay, go ahead.
It's easier.
Yeah, we see your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This session is actually based on a presentation I gave at the Tableau conference this year, earlier. So it's based on something I really enjoy, which is designing dashboards for mobile devices. I don't get the chance to do it as often as I'd like, but I enjoy doing it. So here's what we'll go through. Data accessibility, user experience. I'll share some dashboard examples, I also have a quick demo on how to create interactive elements in Tableau, and I'll save some time for Q&A at the end. I'll also be sharing some starter templates to get you going with mobile dashboards. So yeah, hang on for those. So yeah, my name is Dorian Bănuțoiu. If you're not from this part of the world, I don't recommend trying to pronounce my last name because it's not an easy task. I'm the CEO of Canonicalized, a data analytics company based in Romania. Among other things, we develop Tableau dashboards for clients. So before we get started, I'd like to do a quick image exercise. So can you try to picture a manager or an executive having lunch, commuting, or at a sports event? Now, he or she remembers they need to check up an important number, and they don't have their laptop handy. What do you think will happen next? Is it A, wait until he or she gets back to their computer, or B, calls or emails the BI person to ask for the number? I think we're all expecting B here, but I also believe there's a better option, which is mobile dashboards. So during this session, I'd like to show you why I believe in option C. Number one, data accessibility. So with Tableau, you can access dashboards on mobile devices in a couple of different ways. One is the Tableau mobile app, or you can also log into a mobile browser from your phone. There's also Tableau Pulse, which is fully optimized for mobile devices, which can be accessed in both ways. Now, all of these share a thing in common. They require various degrees of effort to be implemented. But like Henry Ford used to say, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So mobile dashboards come with challenges, but also with great opportunities, I think. Challenges include interface limitations, connectivity issues, the screens are small, and the thumbs are big. The number one opportunity is, like I said, accessibility. People can access the data on their phones at all times. But there's also a more subtle advantage I'd like to explore, which is focus. With mobile dashboards, we're bound to show the data one piece at a time. We don't have the full screen of a computer to stuff with charts and tables. So if we're smart about it, we can minimize redundancy, we can reduce the use of crosstabs, and show the most important stuff to our users, which would be great. So let's talk a bit about user experience. First, we need a solid process for requirements gathering. To create a dashboard that does the job, you must understand the needs, preferences, and expectations of dashboard users. This is a quote from Stephen Few's book, Information Dashboard Design. I recommend it, it's a good read. So this is a template I normally use before starting to work on a dashboard. We need to gather all of these details before we get started: information, audience, the display mode, and use. And if the users are open to having the dashboard accessible on mobile devices via the web, then we can move forward with our use case, which is quite specific. So users will want both simplicity at the same time. I know it was shocking for me as well. Here are my 4 key tips when designing a mobile dashboard. First is focus on the most important KPIs. We need to use negative space and reveal the information only when the user needs it. So this one is an important one for me. And wireframe or sketch before you do this. Here's an example wireframe I created on my tablet. So it's nothing more than a basic representation of the initial dashboard draft. This actually became a client project, so it worked. Progressive disclosure is a concept we can't really put our finger on it. So it's a technique we notice on apps or websites that are easy to use and even enjoyable. It improves 3 out of the 5 components of usability, which are learnability, efficiency of use, and it reduces errors. The basic idea is to push rarely or not so important features to a secondary screen. So it's as simple as that. Right, so I want to show you some real life examples and some tips and tricks as well. So first, I want to show you how I optimized a normal dashboard that was initially designed for desktop devices on mobile, for mobile. So the normal way to go about this is to go to dashboard layout and go to the phone layout and remove the tiny lock next to it. From here, we can play with the automatic layout and start improving our design. Here I redid the header. I split the KPIs into different sheets. And yeah, I also consolidated the filters into a show height container. So everything I did here is for mobile devices only. The end result is a mobile compatible dashboard, I call it. Also, a desktop first approach where you design for desktop and then you adapt the pieces for mobile devices. To test it, I want to show you a browser I use. So it's this one called Blisk. And in here we can, oh, so my license expired. Never mind. So you can see the phone and the desktop devices in parallel, and you can compare to see how it looks on mobile, how it looks on desktop at the same time. Okay, let me see. So right, there's actually a different way to go about this. You can design the, we can design the dashboard for mobile devices from the start. We also call this a mobile first approach. So in this slide, you can see the differences between the desktop first and mobile first approaches. So here's an example of a mobile first approach. I call this the conversation starter because I posted this on social media and I got 2 people to buy into the mobile first concept, to 2 clients. So it's nothing more than sheets fit to the heights of the container. Yeah, it's very simple. So yeah, an advantage to posting on social media. You can get people interested into designing for mobile. This next example was designed by a colleague of mine, and it looked very clean, and I was very impressed by it. I wanted to show you 2 features that I believe make it great. One is a button switcher that changes from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So clicking on the button will recalculate the temperatures in Fahrenheit. Also, the daily forecast acts as a button. So if you click on a day, then the dashboard shows the weather for that specific date. Now this was designed by my colleague Alex. There's a link to the dashboard in the footer. I'm pretty sure he doesn't know what progressive disclosure is, but here he's leveraging it like a pro designer. So yeah, I encourage you to give Alex a follow. He does great work. This is a dashboard I created for real world fake data. It's a social project by Mark Bradburn. I don't know if that's still available or if it's still running, but you can find the challenges online, I believe. So here I'm focusing on a single metric, which is spend. I also added some additional charts trying to answer if the spend went up or down and why. At the bottom, I have some additional breakdowns. Instead of having 3 bar charts, one under the other, I created a button switcher that changes the breakdown. So clicking on expense type, for example, changes the breakdown of the bar chart. In the demo section, I'll show you how you can create this in Tableau. It's not super complicated. And for my last example, this one is an actual client project. It came to fruition after they saw my post on social media with the scrollable KPIs. I asked for their motivation, and the BI lead of the company told me that he wanted to stop emailing PDFs to stakeholders, or at least reduce the number of emails he's sending. So yeah, I thought like it's a noble goal. And I did some prototyping in Figma. Initially, I had some charts for each of the KPI boxes. They said they don't need the charts; they just need more numbers. So I've done my best to make them fit nicely on the page, and I've also deferred the non-essential information to a secondary page. So, for example, if you want more details about orders, you can go in and click on the details button, and you'll see a dedicated page for that. So the main page stays clean, I would say. Okay, so I'll move over to Tableau now, and I want to show you how you can create UI buttons. I use them all the time, and I believe they make a ton of difference in terms of user experience. So let me see. I'm hoping you guys can still see my screen. So in here, I already prepared a bar chart, which is dynamic. So I have a parameter here that switches from category to segment to ship mode, just a simple switcher. So I'll show you the calculation for the dimension. It's just a simple case statement that checks the breakdown, which is a parameter, and uses the different dimensions based on what we select in the parameter. Okay, so for the buttons, I actually created a dummy Excel file with just one column called switcher, where I have the values of the parameter. Now you can create this in different ways. You can avoid creating the data source in here, but I'll just show you my preferred way of doing it, I would say. So first I'll drag the switcher, and I'll duplicate it on text, and I'll create a bar chart, and I'll do a min of 1 just to give it some width, and I'll fix the axis from 0 to 1. I can hide the header, screen it up a bit. So these will act as my buttons, which is actually a set of bar charts. So let's start with the dashboard, where I can add the breakdown and the buttons on top. Play with it for a bit. Right. So in here, I want to first highlight the buttons when I switch the breakdown. So I'll go into the sheet again and create a calculated field and say button active maybe. And the formula is just switcher equals to breakdown. This will give me a true or false. And let's see if it works. Oh, yep, it works. Now in the dashboard, we won't want the parameter anymore. So I'll take this off. And we need a dashboard action. So a dashboard action, add the parameter action. And from here, we can go from buttons. The target parameter is called breakdown. The source field is switcher. Keep the current value, select. Yeah, this is all we need. So now you can see it's interactive. So we can click on the so-called buttons and the breakdown changes. Now, there's a highlighting effect that might not bug anyone, but it does disturb me. So I can show you how to get rid of it. I'm sure most of you know this trick already, but in any case, we need to create two calculated fields, one with true, the value, just the value true, and another one with the value false. False. I'll add both of these to the detail shelf. And going back to the dashboard, we need to add another action. This time is filter action. And with the buttons as source, we need to go into the buttons as target sheet. And in here, we need to filter from true to false. Clearing the selection will show all the values, run and select. So this setup will just help us get rid of the highlighting effect, as you can see. So no more highlighting effect, and everyone is happy now. Okay, so I'll move back to the presentation now. So yeah, like I said, I have to share a set of starter templates you can find on my Tableau public profile, where you can find multiple examples of what I showed during the presentation, and yeah, you can download them and play with them. And that's it. Hopefully, you find it useful.
I think this was amazing.
Okay.
I have a question. So when you're selecting in the preview, like a specific mobile, preview, so is it, in the dashboard.
Okay.
So the idea is that it's kind of letting you select a specific like tablet, mobile device, even like iPhone, different versions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one is is tweaked to have a specific size. So usually it's taking the full size of a screen, But what if when you're using in the browser? So sometimes you have that the header, the other stuff. So do you have like any specific kind of custom, sizes, something like
that? I normally do just like the most popular, like most popular phones. I look at the resolution. Usually, you should be good with just a common size. So 700, I think it's okay. And I also add some padding around the dashboard just to make sure it doesn't get under any I don't know, anything you might have on the screen of your phone.
Nice.
So ideally you would have that padding, which is very important from my point of view. But no, I don't have any specific sizes. But I do look at the most popular mobile devices.
But like from your experience, the companies that are using this Tableau version, so they're using the website kind of connection or the mobile app?
I use the mobile app. I don't know exactly. They don't give me much feedback after I'm done with the dashboards. So I'm asking constantly for feedback, but I'm not so lucky, I would say.
Yeah, I guess they're happy. They're happy with the result.
They must be happy.
Yeah, nice. Okay, any other questions? I think it's good. I think it was all good. I will anyway. I'll combine all those all our speakers' presentations, and I'll make sure that I'm gonna give you guys the presentation itself. Let me just put my last slide. Okay. Where is that? Sorry, doesn't want to. Yeah, there's some technical stuff going on. Yeah, just give me a second, guys. Where is it? Yeah, it looks like it doesn't want to show me the last presentation, last slide. I would say like it was just thank you. So anyway, thank you so much for your time. I'll send all the contacts and the presentation to anyone who was in the loop. And the thing is, I know it's like really close to the end of the year, and everyone's having anything else in mind, and they don't think about increasing their skills right now. So, but I got a lot of messages that to show with other people the presentation, the video. I'll publish on YouTube and on LinkedIn as well. So thank you so much. And congratulations again for Ada and Kavaljit, because they become a co-lead for the Toronto Tableau user group. And I think we're going to do a lot of interesting sessions in the future. And for the Canadian people, we're going to have one presentation in person at the Salesforce office. Hopefully, we're going to manage that as well. But so far, we're going to do it online, because we join like more people from around the world and so on. So thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank you both. It's such a great presentation. I really learned a lot. I will definitely make sure to check the mobile template and then the practical charts book, and then Nick, your workshop.
Same. Lovely watching
Yeah.
presentation. Lots of learning, I would say, in that case. The effectiveness of charts and Dorian as mobile friendly, which is good. I would request the audience and everyone to follow them on LinkedIn, follow them on Tableau Public. They have great presence, lots to learn from them. And anyways, you know us, and we'll keep on posting and keep you updated on the next Tableau, which will be, I think, New Year.
Yeah.
But yes, keep watching out. Adrian is very, very active on LinkedIn
Yeah.
and will have many posts before it is actually out there. Yeah. So
Yeah, so I think like my first step is going to be I'm going to go to Nick's website, checking his books, and I think it's like a huge investment when you just buy like something like $30-50 of a book, and you got this knowledge, So you never know what that smart you are unless you're learning. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop the recording. So thank you.
Bye.